Okay, thank you, everyone. It's been a busy day so far, and now we're into the formal public section of our board meeting, and we are live feeding onto the internet, so the people at home and around the province in our extremely large district can have the opportunity to see what is discussed and what is taking place at our meeting here today. I do notice, I think we have one representative from the media that has taken place. Thank you to VOCM as well for taking the opportunity to plug into what's going on in our district. Today we have regrets from two of our trustees because of, unfortunately, there were other activities that they had prior commitments to, so unfortunately Tom Kendall and Scott Burden aren't able to attend today, but we have the full regime of the rest of the trustees at the table. First piece of business we need to do is we need to adopt the agenda for the meeting. Are there any additions to the agenda? Hayward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to propose an addition to the agenda. And very simply, we've all heard, of course, what's been happening at Indian River High School in Springdale. And I'd like to propose a motion that the board gathered here today support the students and staff at Indian River High for their commitment to affirming gender and sexuality acceptance within their communities.
Okay, thank you, Hayward. I would suggest that under new business 6.7, we add this item to the list for the agenda. Any further items to be added? I need a vote. Okay, so I should go back to the process appropriately. So Hayward's moved a motion that we add this item to the agenda, seconded by Peter. For a motion to be, for an item to be added to the agenda, we need unanimous consent from the trustees around the table. So all in favor? Aye. Aye. Those against? Motion carries, and we add to the agenda. Any further additions to the agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Moved by Lester, seconded by Corey. All in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Thank you. First item is the consideration of the minutes of the board meeting of April 14th that were in your package. It was submitted beforehand. Give you a second to get them in order, and then can I get a motion to adopt the minutes as presented? Moved by Jennifer, seconded by Wince. Any errors or omissions that are identified or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Or vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Second set of minutes is the June 4th meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes as presented? Moved by Pamela, seconded by John George. Any errors or omissions associated with these minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of the acceptance of the minutes as presented?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Thank you for that. Okay, business arising. First one is sale of Booth Memorial. Are we going to Terry? Go to Wayne? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The sale of Booth Memorial is the first of a series of 3 sales that we'll be dealing with this afternoon. Whereas the former Booth Memorial High School on Freshwater Road in St. John's closed in June 2015 when it merged with Bishops and moved to Waterford Valley High. And whereas the district recently tendered for the sale of this property, received 7 bids, ranging from $8,000 odd to $1,227,000. Successful bidder was Pentagon Realty for the purchase price of $1,227,901. The district is seeking board approval to complete the deal with Pentagon Realty Limited based on terms to be negotiated with the denominational authorities associated with that property. Therefore, I am begging a seconder, that the board approve the sale of Booth Memorial High to the highest bidder resulting from the public tender process, including settlement with the denominational interests pending ministerial approval.
Thank you, Wayne. Moved by Wayne. Do I have a seconder? seconded by Ray. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Second item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second is the sale of the McPherson Elementary. The former McPherson Elementary School on Newton Road in St. John's closed in June 2011, whereas the district recently tendered for the sale of this property, received 8 bids ranging from $145,000 to $895,000. Successful bidder was again Pentagon Realty for a purchase price of $895,695. The district is seeking board approval to complete the deal with Pentagon Realty based on terms to be negotiated with the denominational authorities associated with the property. Therefore, I am moving, begging a seconder that the board approve the sale of McPherson Elementary to the highest bidder resulting from the public tender process, including settlement with denominational interest pending ministerial approval.
Thank you, Wayne. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by John Smith. Any discussion or questioning for the... Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries. Wayne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The third and final item is the sale of Bishop's College. The former Bishop College School on Pennville Road in St. John's closed in June 2015 when it merged with Booth Memorial and moved to Waterford Valley High. Whereas the district recently tendered for the sale of this property and received 7 bids ranging from $8,696 to $1,227,000. The successful bidder was again Pentagon Realty Limited for a purchase price of $1,227,501. District is seeking board approval to complete the deal with Pentagon Realty Limited based on terms to be negotiated with the denominational authorities associated with the property. Motion by motion, begging a seconder, is that the board approve the sale of Bishop's College to the highest bidder resulting from the public tender process, including settlement of denominational interest pending ministerial approval. I so move.
Moved by Wayne, seconded by Lester. Any questions or concerns regarding this particular motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes the business arising.
Thank you very much, Wayne, for that. Our next item on the agenda becomes the committee reports. Our first one is the executive committee, where there were no meetings, therefore there is no requirement for a report, because we have to listen to Wayne talk about very little, and we're going to avoid that at all costs.
I'm wounded deeply.
I hope you are. The next piece, the actual financial chair, Finance and Operations Committee chair is away today, Tom, so therefore Keith Culleton, Trustee Keith Culleton, has agreed to do the role in that particular section. So the first item is the Finance and Operations report from June 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Finance and Operations Committee report, as Mr. Chair has stated, for June 1st. 5.2a, Policy, Facility Security, and Access Control. Approximately 60% of district schools are on a common master key system. Each year, the district expands the system as budget allows, with a goal of full coverage for all schools and offices. The newest in the district have card access systems as well, and it is the intention, of course, to expand this system district-wide. The master key system allows controlled building access according to the needs of the school/user. So your teacher's key would open, obviously, teacher's classroom and other related areas. So there are safeguards in place to make sure that the right people only have access to the required areas. While the master key system is currently guided by best practices via sign-out forms, memos, etc., the lack of official board policy and associated administrative regulations to formalize best practices is a shortcoming that needs to be addressed. The policy establishes a framework to maintain the security of buildings by tracking who has access, the rules surrounding their access, etc., prohibiting the loaning of keys/cards. So I move that the board approve the adoption of policy OPER-605, Facility Security and Access Control, as presented by the Finance and Operation Committee.
Thank you, Keith. Do I hear a seconder to the motion?
Seconded, Wayne.
Seconded by Wayne. Any questions, concerns, discussion? Hearing none, vote in favor of the motion. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Thank you. Back to you, Keith.
Section 5.2b, School Fundraising Policy. School-generated funds, which are of course funds raised, collected, and/or generated at the school level or in the name of the school, are considered district funds, and the district is therefore held to the same standard of accountability and transparency in the management of these funds as any other type of public funds. Given the volume of funds that are generated at the school level and the legislative and accounting standards required to be met, the possibility of non-compliance with these standards poses a significant risk to the board and the district. The intention of this policy is to ensure all employees involved in school-generated funds activities, particularly school administrators, the employees responsible for the management of their school-generated funds, are aware of district expectations with respect to school fundraising. So I would like to take a small sidebar here and discuss at the Finance and Operation meeting that I had attended, obviously in reference to 52B, the school fundraising. There was, if you wanted to have a look at your notes, subsection 17, if you wanted to reference that. It's regarding fundraising with advertising and sponsorships on jerseys, on sports jerseys. I have talked to, since this Finance and Operation meeting, I've talked to quite a few stakeholders about this, so I'd just like to talk about this now and get your input. So I have spoken to several coaches, volunteers, phys ed teachers over the last 10 days or so. The vast majority of these people say they do not support the prohibition of uniforms or school advertising. I agree that such advertising needs to be strictly monitored. I would support school councils overseeing these sponsorships, as they already oversee fundraising. The need exists for these monetary supporters as budgets continue to shrink. Several coaches, volunteers, teachers that I've spoken to strongly believe that by eliminating this possibility for fundraising in this manner will terminate the sport program that they are involved with. Having a local company sponsor a team enhances community spirit, culture, and pride while giving much needed funds to the sports teams in question. If we go down this road, I submit that we will then be forced to review names on scoreboards, award banners, and even on placement medals given to kids at the end of a tournament. Rather than terminating sponsorships, we need to embrace them. Local school councils can be the gatekeepers here, as they are already tasked with fundraising activity approval. We need to highlight our local businesses rather than shut them off out of our learning environments, as we are responsible for preparing our children for the real world. So based on that, I would submit, and procedurally, if I'm doing anything incorrectly, please.
Right. From the procedural point of view, I think we have the committee structure in place so that we have a recommendation to the board that comes out that has committee full endorsement. If there is, and it sounds like there's substantive further review that's required in order to make the motion, with the notifications and everything else that are required for the board, that in this particular case, because of further information that complicates the motion, that I think this should go back to committee.
And that's what I was going to recommend, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Just that particular subsection.
Okay.
Everything else is fine. So it's only subsection 17 that I would like to kick back to F&O.
So I'm going to defer to staff, because I suspect rather than putting something through that is not in its entirety, it's probably better to take the whole thing back and review that subsection, then bring it back for clear vote on the full policy for next time. Can I just defer? Yes, would that be agreement with the?
Yes, Mr. Chair, you should bring the entire policy back to open up a section to bring it back.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Next on the Finance and Operations Committee report, June 8th, the naming of school. Make sure that I'm doing this in the right order. Yes. So, former Our Lady of Mercy Elementary, Appalachia High. Correspondence was forwarded by principals of both Appalachia and Our Lady of Mercy on behalf of their respective school councils. This correspondence requests approval of the selected name Bayview Academy for the new K-12 school to be housed at the former school locations. and you can see the procedure that was followed in accordance with district regulations. And I would move that the board approve the name Bayview Academy for the new K-12 school to be housed at the former Appalachia High and Our Lady of Mercy Elementary School in St. George's as requested by the school councils of both schools and recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee.
I second that as a trustee for the area.
Okay, seconded by Wayne. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Thank you.
Next is section 5.3b, which is the site selection for Bay Despair Academy. In capital requests for 2013 to 2018, the Newfoundland Labrador English School District carried forward a request for the previous Nova Central School District for a new school to replace Bay Despair Academy. This obviously became more imperative since the primary elementary wing and gymnasium burnt to the ground in early 2017. The board has indicated a preference for a completely new school build versus the utilization of smoke/fire damaged but still standing high school wing of the original building. In terms of specific site, there are 2 parcels of land adjacent to the temporary school where schools previously stood, and which the town informs us that Crown Grant specifies use for school. This will be the natural selection and location for the new school construction, pending, of course, confirmation of title and geotechnical environmental suitability. I move that the board approve to utilize the noted available school site in St. Albans for the new Bay Despair Academy, pending confirmation of suitability by the Department of Transportation and Works, and further subject to ministerial approval as recommended by the Finance and Operation Committee.
Thank you, Keith. I think you need a medal for the length of that motion, but that's that's extremely good.
Mr.
Do I have a
Chair?
seconder?
I'd like to second that motion.
John George seconds the motion. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
If I
John.
may, thank you, Mr. Chair. Fellow trustees, I welcome the opportunity to speak in favor of this motion. All pertinent information regarding the motion, I think, is included in the briefing note that the mover referred to, that was prepared by staff and it was approved at the Finance and Operations Committee. Trustees, as you're all aware, Bay Despair Academy was destroyed by fire in the early morning hours of January the 17th, 2017. Students from Bay Despair Academy have been displaced now for approximately a year and a half, 18 months. So all the students are being adequately accommodated in the municipal building in St. Albans. The learning environment that the students and staff are currently operating under is far from ideal, and they are eagerly awaiting the opening of a new school. So this motion to approve the site selection of a new state-of-the-art facility is an extremely important step to making this much anticipated project become a reality. I respectfully ask my fellow trustees to support this motion so that we are able to move this important project forward without delay. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any further speakers to the motion or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries.
Lastly, section 5.3c, naming of the school, the new CBS Elementary School. Correspondence was forwarded to the school district by the school council and principal of the new CBS Elementary School, indicating that they have followed district school naming policy and guidelines for the naming of the new school in CBS. You can have a look at our briefing notes there, stating the votes that came in. There was a tie between 2 names. One of Admiral's Academy had 12 votes. Upwards Academy had 12. So this was kicked back to the council, which decided that Admiral's Academy would be the one that they would prefer. Therefore, the school council of the new school in CBS is requesting the board approve Admiral's Academy as the official school name for the CBS Elementary School. I move that the board approve of the name Admiral's Academy for the new CBS Elementary School as requested by the school council and recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee.
Thank you, Keith. Do I hear a seconder to the motion?
I as trustee for the area, I'll second that motion.
John, any discussion or commentary? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. I got to apologize, because in our procedural
Yes.
work a minute ago, I confused the issue and put you off your process, and we did miss an item that needs to be taken care of. I think it was the finance and 5-3, the financial stuff,
Yes, yes.
the update, budget update. I think it's 5-2C.
Oh, yes, okay, gotcha, okay. Okay, so 5-2C, quarterly budget update, March 31st of 2018. Quarterly budget update for the period ending, of course, March 31st, 2018. The original budget was $771.38 million. The revised was $100,000 more, which is an increase of $100,000, of course. And if you look at the net of block funding from the Department of Education Early Childhood Development, is broken down there as well. And the expenses are expected to remain within budget for the next fiscal year, although certain expenditures may exceed the approved budget allocation. The budget adjustment of $97,000, I would assume, Terry, that's a reflection of the .10 million, right? So quarter ending March 31st, it's notated here as well on your notes. The schedule summarized the operating results compared to the revised budget for the period ending March 31st. I move that the board approve of the revised quarterly budget status update for the period ending March 31st, 2018, as presented by the Finance and Operations Committee.
Thank you, Keith. Do I hear a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Corey. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion carries. I would really stress that Tom should not leave. He should make his effort to be here more often, because the reporting trustee certainly did an exceptional job at doing that. So, thank you very much. Next order.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just to go back to 5-2B with regards to the school fundraising, just procedurally, I want to make sure that everything is done right. Does that motion need to be defeated first?
No, the motion now is that it's gone back to you.
So we didn't need,
No, we didn't make a motion because before it got to
Okay.
seconding, it wasn't entertained.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Food for next time around with that
Right.
conversation. Thank you for that. The next order of business is the report from
And the bus.
Human Resource Programs and Human Resource Report for May 21.
Yeah.
That's always
Mr.
good
Chair.
when you get told. Kevin, sorry about that. I was just told that I wasn't following the protocol for making sure that all our reps from around the province can actually hear what we're saying. So I'm now live. So Kevin, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair, everything that is in the report is in our minutes and in your booklet. I want to commend the group for the work on the French programs policy. It has taken us most of the winter. For those of you not on this particular committee, you saw the guidelines for French programming at our last meeting. That has now been fleshed out into full policy form. And so we have one motion coming from all of that, Mr. Chair, that the board approve the French programs policy with the changes as discussed regarding Policy Directive Number 1 as tabled at the May 29th, 2018 Programs and Human Resources Committee meeting. And I beg a seconder.
Moved by Kevin, seconded by John. Any discussion, questions, clarifications? Corey?
I'd just like to speak to it as trustee that spoke to this issue a number of times in the past, and again, I'd just like to thank Kevin and the Programs and Human Resources Committee for extensive work they've done as well with staff, in particular Lucy, because a lot of work went in this year policy, and I guess from my perspective, an issue arose out of a situation in Zone 10 in Marystown, and when we went through this process, and I guess it's somewhat gratifying when we come here today and see that through the work of committee and work of staff that we're able to make a difference in programs such as French immersion are able to survive in rural communities where numbers decline. So I just want to make that comment as I spoke to it on in passing. Again, thank the committee level and thank the staff for the extensive work they put into it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Corey. Any further commentary associated with this? If not, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. I think that completes your task for today, Kevin. You got off lightly. The other K name certainly had to work for it. Next item on the business is new business. School Review 2018-2019. We're going to Lucy, and then we'll go to our Vice Chair for motions associated with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This morning, I gave you an update on where we are with school reviews. And of course, we have 2 catchment reconfigurations that are already been approved by the board as motions in Mount Pearl and Holy Spirit High School. And the other one is in Mobile Central High School, so those 2 catchment reviews will proceed. Also talked about the other potential school reviews that we could be doing. Some of them will arise as a result of emerging needs in schools. Some of them could be potential reconfigurations that could result in closures. And so we brought it to the table for a discussion as to how we want to proceed with those in light of the Schools Act that's opening for review in the fall. And that could give us some opportunity to put forth some things we would like to see around the school review. And I'll turn it back to you for take from there.
Okay, so we did have an extensive discussion about how we'd utilize and focus our resources over the next year in the light of all the reviews that are taking place with the legislation in the House. So I'm going to defer to the Vice Chair, Wayne, to present a motion on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am moving, begging a seconder, that the Board of Trustees postpone further school reviews leading to potential school closure, with the exception of any school where there are emerging needs associated with the school, pending review of the Schools Act. Again, I move, begging a seconder.
Seconded by John. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Next item on the board agenda is the school board meeting schedule for 2018-2019. Okay, so we've done extensive. It's amazing how the busy calendar of the school district sort of plot. What? This is a career altering. No, I'm only joking. We're just getting the right schedule on the board, so we don't. Okay. All right. So we've gone through the calendar and we've tried to identify. It's an extremely challenging prospect for us with this number of trustees from around the province and with all the other business and the necessary activities that go on in the run of the year to come up with a calendar. And this is what the schedule is looking like for next year as proposed. I would only highlight as the chair from a certain region of this province that it's the first time the new school district will be venturing to off the island into the Labrador region, so that is a good. So I'm going to look to Wayne, to the vice chair, to move a motion to adopt the schedule.
I'll be moving the adoption of the schedule as presented, again begging a seconder.
Do I hear a seconder to the motion? I hear Trustee Winston Carter to second the motion. Any discussion? Any issues? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries. Next item, 6.3, is a standing issue. There was no meeting, therefore there is no detailed report. The next item on the agenda, 6.4, School Milk Foundation, is similar. 6.5, Education Foundation report. The report is actually circulated to your email as of now, but it wasn't in the pre-meeting package. But Wayne, as the chair of that committee, is going to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the interest of efficiency, we decided at the last meeting that I would continue to chair until the next meeting, at which time we will elect a new chair and put me out to pasture, which is fine. Again, my apologies for that not being there. It is there, the report is there at the moment if you have access to your email. The report is 2 or 3 pages long, so I certainly won't read it at you. I'll summarize it, but you do have it in your possession even if you can't access it right now. There are essentially 3 decisions made. They're not coming to the board. Those are internal decisions. One is the deferral of the innovation grants and awards. We've had some difficulty getting enough submissions. We tend to get them from the same teachers and schools. We decided to review the effectiveness of the program and therefore delay the release until October, November. We have a similar problem with the scholarship policy and application. We don't tend to get responses from as broad a range of students as we would like. So we've made we haven't made some suggested changes. We've made some changes to that, including a change in the graduation requirement marks, and instead of an essay to require a list of 4 topics or questions. And the third item that we decided is simply to reorder the calendars. Most of you, all of you are familiar with, which seem to be a big hit, and they will be in your possession as soon as is possible. Again, the motions are internal, but I and other members of the committee are certainly willing to answer any questions or queries that you may have.
Did you move a motion to?
I'm coming now. Seeing no questions, I move in the adoption of the report, again begging a seconder from the committee.
Second.
Seconded by Corey. Any questions or concerns associated with the motion part of it? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. The next 6.6 is the NLESD committee report. There were no meetings, so there obviously is no report. 6.7 is the new item that was added to the agenda by Trustee Hayward Blake on Indian River. Would you like to speak to the issue?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, many of us, of course, are aware of the plight of the students at Indian River High in Springdale, and I guess they were looking to have a crosswalk in their community, and of course, it took on a much broader context than simply a crosswalk in the community. What it came down to, I think, was a group of students taking responsibility for an issue and advancing that issue. And many people around the province and nationally, I think, spoke to support the efforts of the students and teachers at that particular school. So I would like to make a motion that the Newfoundland and Labrador English School Board applaud and support the students and staff at Indian River High in Springdale for their commitment to affirming gender and sexuality acceptance within school communities. Begging a second.
Thank you. Thank you, Hayward. Just because of the speeds of the hand, Corey got his hand up faster than Trustee Pamela, so risking no bias, we're going to go with Corey on this as a seconder to this issue. Any discussion or further commentary from the other trustees around the table?
How do you plan to, what do you suggest we do to recognize them? Send a letter to the school, or is there some other way you would suggest?
No, I think the fact that we're recognizing their work here today and the minutes of this meeting be sent, but maybe the chair or the CEO, director can follow up with the principal of the school to pass along our acknowledgement of the work that they successfully did in that particular area to advance the cause that many of us are very interested in, and particularly when we see students not simply proposing to move an issue forward and not receiving the response that they were hoping for, just simply didn't go away, but continued their efforts. And I think they've highlighted the role of many GSA groups across the province and across the country to continue their work to advance this cause for all of us, such that our communities and our schools can become much better places for all of us to attend daily and weekly. Thank you.
Okay, what I would suggest is along your lines is that I'll formulate a letter of a piece of correspondence then reflecting the recognition that's been given in the minutes of this board meeting and once the vote has taken place and stuff like that, and the support that's there, and get that sent out as quickly as possible. Any further discussion or commentary? Hearing none, Can I get all in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. That concludes the new business component of the meeting. Next piece is correspondence sent and received by the district, and we don't go down through them individually. Are there any questions that the trustees have associated with any of this commentary, correspondence, or updates that they would be looking for? These would have been included in your package. Peter?
Mr. Chair, I'm just curious about the role of the Phase 1 schools. If we have a list of the Phase 1 schools that could be distributed to us, they might have, and I've missed them, but I'm also wondering, have we had any success in determining, determining which of the, are they going to be, which union are they going to be represented by, and do we have a job description and a salary scale?
This is, you're looking for the correspondence piece? And
Yeah, we got the correspondence here. We're talking just the assistants that are going to be in place in the fall, the new assistants we're having in Phase 1 schools.
Phase 1 schools piece. I'm going to defer to Tony.
Sorry, I was trying to get ready for the next piece. Can you repeat the question, Peter?
I just had a question, just regards to, I like where we're going with the education component for everybody. I'm just wondering about the new position, if we've determined the pay scale for it yet, what union's going to they're going to be represented by, and if there's a job description in place yet.
No, there's no final decision. Of course, that wouldn't be something that the district would be consulted on, but we wouldn't actually have authority for that decision. That's ongoing discussions at the district or at the department level, but no decisions have been made yet.
Thank you, Peter. Any further question regarding to? I will speak to the invite to the minister. I did allude to it earlier on. The minister was obviously tied up in that, but sorry about that. The minister we did write a letter to the minister requesting an opportunity to meet with him at this particular meeting. Because of the Liberal Convention, obviously, that's going forward in Gander this weekend, he was not available in town, but he has expressed absolute willingness to come to the next available opportunity to meet with us and have a discussion about the issues of the board so that we can continue that dialogue, hopefully for a significant period of time. Next item on the agenda is the director's report. And I will turn the floor over to Tony.
Thank you, Chair. So this report will focus on a few items, as highlighted here. It's more of a strategic plan update at this point, and some of our focused initiatives. And we'll conclude with some good news stories, as always. So strategic highlights, we're into year one of our 2017-2018 of our three-year plan. In terms of the three strategic issues, we are making progress on all of them, and we've identified priorities for year two implementation. Literacy is a big piece on the student success pillar. Our number one issue is student success, and literacy features very prominently. The benchmark assessment, professional learning for all grades now is in place. We started with a rollout in grades 1 and 3, then we went 2, 4. Last year we did grades 5 and 6, or this past year, so we are now fully implemented with the BAS kits across the province. The comparable French kits have also been assembled. They're a little bit different. We have to actually assemble those as there's no BAS kits as such, so they've been also progressed. The leveled literacy intervention, 53 of those have been distributed this year, so we're now up to a total of 242 province-wide. And we've held a number of sessions, professional learning, around using this key intervention tool for identifying learners that may be struggling with reading. The grade 7 to 9 literacy plan has been developed, and we'll be rolling that out in grade 7 this fall. The number of different literacy events, of course, we've been championing around the province, everything from drama festivals to turning points to heritage fairs. Highly well attended, well represented, and lots of community involvement. In terms of numeracy, we are developing a 6 to 9 plan around numeracy. So this year we've begun with the cohort trialing some of these in grades 6 and 7. Of course, the grade 6s of this year will be the grade 7s of next year. And then we'll roll it out and continue to roll it out until we get up to grade 9 in subsequent years. The numeracy plan has been completed, and we've communicated to all the schools prior to start for September. A number of different math events promoted, everything from Mole Day to the various mathematics contests out of Waterloo, University of Waterloo, again, highly subscribed. And the little graphic in the corner there is an online tool that has been developed for mathematics that has been availed of quite a bit this year in terms of preparation for our students as an extra resource for parents at home. Great feature. In terms of Safe and Caring Schools initiatives, 33 professional learning sessions with 68 schools, talking circles, over 6,000 students involved on the Restorative Justice Initiative. In LGBTQ training, 19 professional learning sessions, over 600 participants. The Go-To Teacher training, which is the training around mental health for teachers, and as well as mental health first aid, been continuing as well in all regions, and a number of different initiatives around active schools, which forms a big part of our policy. In terms of access, and there's a very good example in this room here today, as we've installed a lift to make the District Conference Center fully accessible, which is a great initiative. We've had a number of buildings that, while they may have been constructed in times when the code was different, we've taken the initiative to actually go beyond the code and make more and more accessible, to the tune of some $500,000 earmarked for that this past year. And we partnered with the Coalition for Disabilities, who led some professional learning with our facilities managers around access. So it's a great initiative. In terms of OH&S, we have some work to do, but we continue to expand things like our first aid training. Our OH&S policy is being developed as we speak. You'll have access to and adjudicate that process come the fall. Facilities, OH&S safety sessions in all regions for our custodians. And we've had over 200 drivers trained in workplace hazard training. As well, another initiative, building awareness for the people that interface with our students from the time of pickup until they're delivered back into our homes on our streets. 188 bus drivers trained in autism, 337 student assistants similarly trained in this professional learning that occurs over a day-long event. Safe Pupil is an online training system. Now we have over 1,100 drivers out of the 1,300 that have been trained in Safe Pupil. Other safety procedures, of course, emergency first aid, CPR, EpiPen training with 152 drivers. DDC courses, defensive driving, 214 drivers, and respectful workplace training for 68 drivers. So we continue to incorporate our bus drivers, both contracted and board-owned personnel, as part of our strategic initiative around safe and caring. In terms of leadership development and organizational effectiveness, as you know, in the first 3 years of the district, organizational effectiveness was a key pillar. We added leadership development based on the input from the Board of Trustees in the second go-around 3-year plan. So we are just coming out of our last year's Emerging Leaders program. This year, in Component 1, there's 54 that have gone through the spring sessions, and we've got 26 registered for the Summer Institute in collaboration with the NLTA and Memorial University. So totals over the years trained are quite a few, and these are our future program specialists, assistant principals, principals. It's identifying key talent in our organization and preparing them for future leadership tasks. Great partnership and great program. In terms of organizational effectiveness, The bus planner system has now been, all bus routes will be entered in September. We have a document management system to look after the certification, vehicle registration. That's all been put into the system, 50% on the vehicle side, but we're getting there. Student transportation, we have an online inquiry. There's a lot of parents that have questions or concerns related to busing. There is a one-window approach, one-window shopping to go in there and get a response, and this is attended to regularly. That's a great initiative from student transportation. The online bus repair work order system, that's being implemented in using a Google form, and we're piloting the use of GPS on some of our fleet, on 12 of our buses, and in 12 of our maintenance vehicles. We're looking for efficiencies, route efficiencies and such. In terms of financial management, this has been a big push. We've enhanced our quarterly financial review procedures. There's a new handbook being generated for our school leaders around managing school-generated funds, which is a significant amount of money in the system. And we have now a provincial financial help desk. All of our administrators have been advised that they can access any financial management manager in any of our regions, no matter where they reside. In terms of professional learning, we've done some enhanced school finance professional learning for both administrators and secretaries, as well as the new administrators and the Emerging Leaders Program. There are different sessions as well, targeted to different groups, and we've had some as well ask for side-by-side, as it were, where a financial person comes out, a member from the financial division, sits down either virtually or physically with the school secretary and or administration and talks them through some of our financial systems. This is your work, and it's quite a lot. When you put it up on one slide and you look at all of the policies that were approved during this school year, you can see there's quite a bit. And that amounts to a lot of staff work, but also a lot of input and oversight and work from you as trustees. That's quite a number of policies in one given year. And today, of course, we considered the French policy and the facility security and access. School fundraising has gone back to committee. And as well, we provided the Department of Education with fully drafted policies and input, because these are ultimately going to be provincial policies that will apply to our district as well as the French board around healthy living and active living. In terms of kindergarten registration, this continues to be a successful electronic way of registering students. I would draw attention to the fact, however, that each year there is about 200 less kindergartners registering into our system, which speaks to the overall declining enrollment as a provincial picture. But it's a very successful method for parents to get in, and a convenient method to sign up their children for the Kinder Start, for future kindergarten registration. And our website, as a result, is quite active. In terms of the Premier's Task Force, there was a meeting for Phase 1 schools, and there are 40 provincially, 39 of which are Newfoundland Labrador English School District schools, our schools. So we had a very productive meeting here in this facility. All of them were brought here. They're the administrators. And it was a very positive session. They were given a lot of details as to how we're going to roll out some of the recommendations, particularly around reading and the new reading specialist, the future teacher and learning assistants that will be part of that. It was a productive, collaborative session run in tandem with the department and our personnel at the district level as well as the schools. And Minister Hawkins did manage to come and participate as well at one point. So literacy, as I said, is a key part of our strategic plan, and it aligns well with the Premier's Task Force initiative. This graphic, kind of best, is a good way of summarizing everything. Now, I'll zone in on literacy here, but we recognize that in terms of what we do with students in a programming way, the bottom piece of the pyramid there is universal instruction. So most students will be able to be accommodated in our system through universal methods, the standard design, the regular core curriculum. From time to time, we'll have the target interventions in that core curriculum at students needing assistance. And then there are those that will require intense interventions. So this is the focus of the entire responsive teaching and learning pillar that will be a part of the Premier's Task Force rollout. There's social emotional learning, mathematics, and reading. We're focusing on reading here. School-based reading specialists will be embedded into the Phase 1 schools, and then subsequently, as the rest of the rollout occurs, with all the schools in the province in the K-6 area. Teaching and learning assistance. The department have developed what the roles and tasks, likely tasks would be for those teaching and learning assistants who will be of great benefit for our school system. The exact numbers of TLAs, where they reside in terms of representation, that's to be determined. There's a lot of work. I would say that my personal view on this is that this is moving at lightning speed in order to create a new position, and it's due to the good work of the department and our people at the district level supporting them. Library Learning Commons, big initiative. They'll have, in each of these pillars that you see on the bottom, there will be somebody at the department that's lead for each of those, so they'll have somebody that's going to be leading the Library Learning Commons initiative. As well, we have district program specialists for reading. So we are in the process now of hiring district program specialists, 5 that will be a great benefit to our system in our literacy initiative. While this slide speaks mainly to the reading component, there are also similarly 5 that were being hired for mathematics. Just to focus a little bit here, this display behind me, and if you do have the opportunity, there's some great books that we're getting into our system. And they're thematic in their approach. We've got technology, diversity, problem-solving inquiry. They're tremendous resources, and if you have the opportunity to flip through it, that would be great. You're going to see this type of literature in all of our schools, and we're very grateful for it. The tactile reading piece is another feature. We can all read on the iPads, and that's great, and that's a wonderful piece, and we can leverage technology, but sometimes a good old hardcover, well-illustrated book is a nice thing to have as well. In terms of the Principals Advisory Group, another initiative that we launched this year, when we first met with this group of 13 principals that are representative of various nooks and crannies in our system and various grade level considerations, we had a tremendous amount of input from them. They identified some key areas that we need to focus on, and the first one that they identified was issues related to student engagement. We've been working with this particular group, and what we evolve from this particular group we will use as a basis to replicate, grow in other schools throughout the district. Some of them are doing it on their own initiative, but we will be establishing through this group, particularly on the student engagement pillar, some exemplars of how student engagement might work in a school. And I have one example. I'd like if you could maximize that and play that video. This is from one particular school.
At Brother Rice, math learning blocks are being implemented to support student learning in focus areas identified by the Intermediate Numeracy Assessment. A math learning block is a framework used for structuring class routines so that students gain deep conceptual understanding and mathematical proficiency. To begin, we looked at ways to make the classroom inviting, functional, and comfortable. We wanted to ensure that seating spaces and workspaces met the diverse needs of the students. Functional storage spaces help to promote student independence, and word walls are used to spark student engagement. In a math block, the class begins with 10 to 15 minutes of whole group instruction. The class then breaks into rounds, usually 2 to 3 rounds per class, and then comes back together to reflect on what has been achieved. Round choices include, but are not limited to, math with a teacher, math with a partner, math with technology, math writing, and math by myself. Round choices give the teacher an opportunity to work with students in a small group while allowing for student choice. Student choice helps students to develop independence and accountability. Students can self-select at the beginning of class or end of class. We use an interactive whiteboard. The students of Brother Rice Junior High School are enjoying the implementation of learning blocks in their math classroom. They are very excited and can't wait for class to begin. There has been a significant amount of positive feedback, with the majority of students who would like to see more math classes structured this way. From our work so far, it is evident that the math block promotes student engagement, differentiation, and ownership of learning. We are fostering a growth mindset, which allows students to work at their own pace on tasks suited to their individual needs. We look forward to advancing our work with the math learning block by further exploring classroom organization, student choices, and round activities.
And if you look at a classroom in the 1920s and 50s, and look at one now, not much has changed, which is, honestly, that's kind of crazy to think about, because it's been almost a century since then, and we haven't really made any progress. And I feel like the learning blocks, these are that progress. These are the change, the transition to easier learning, fun learning, and I just think it's great.
I'm gonna say that I think some people in school, maybe they don't do as well, but maybe they're like a super good artist. And I think the reason that is because they find art like more fun and they really enjoy doing art. And with the learning blocks, I think people are progressing so much with their learning, and I think that's because they're having fun. And I think when you don't let people like do math with their friends and do math with their teacher and have all these fun math games and just make them sit at their desk and like do 20 pages of math, that they're not gonna find it fun, so they're not gonna wanna study for tests, and they're not gonna wanna put in the effort to become really good at it. And I think learning blocks are the solution to that.
Yeah, I have something to add to that. So I agree 100%, like totally. And it's not only fun, it's not only enjoyable for everybody, but it's also, I feel like I get a better understanding of what we're doing and of the subjects and the curriculum. I feel like I understand what's going on more, and I get like, I never understood fractions last year, I never understood decimals last year, and now this year with the learning blocks and everything, it's just like that. It's so easy now, and it also feels like I understand it, and like it feels like I've known it for a really long time, but I've only really been understanding it this year.
And this also fosters a better communication with you and your student.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different level, and you can chat with them probably more easily, right?
And they're more comfortable in your classroom. When you're more comfortable, you're more likely to learn.
Yeah,
And I feel too, because they are taking ownership of their own learning and they're helping one another along the way, that if you can teach a concept to somebody else, you're gonna remember it much longer than if someone just showed it to me and I'm gonna forget it next week.
Right.
Like if you can pass it on to somebody else, then you got it. So when you see a kid who's struggling in a certain topic and they're doing the math with the teacher, when you spend your 10 minutes with them, you know exactly what you need to zone in on. So when they do their assessment, then you know that they should have it.
Right, because not every student needs to.
Be doing the same thing at the same time.
Same time, exactly.
A lot of times the bathroom break is so that they can do something differently. So,
They can
for
get up and
example,
move
if they're
around.
listening to a teacher for 20 minutes, they has to go to the washroom so that they can go for a walk and occupy themselves in a different way.
Yeah.
But if they're listening to a teacher for say 10, 15 minutes, and then they take a break from that, let's call it a break, to go and work with a computer or a Chromebook or work with
student, and then by the time they get, we'll say, tired of doing that, then they're moving on to something else. It's almost like they don't need to take that break, because a lot of the time, going to the washroom is just taking this break.
Yeah.
Working through, I know exactly what level they're at, and every single day it drives my teaching in a different direction. Whereas without block structure, I felt like I was just teaching to a class, but I wasn't teaching to this student and this student and this student. I just feel like it's way less planning than it ever was before.
It runs itself.
It runs
Yeah.
itself once you put in the initial work.
Okay. Good. All right, so recognizing that there's wonderful initiatives in many different schools around the province, and we could go to many different locations. This is just one example of some of the initiatives that are taking place. It's interesting that learning blocks come from the K-6 realm, but this is a junior high school. And one thing we know about junior high students, the more hands-on you can get, and I was a principal of a junior high school, so this is an example. And they went to the results page, and we only got so much time here, but just suffice to say that the empirical data that they're getting back, pre-test, post-test, what they did, what the results were compared to a group last year, similar groups this year, the marks, if you can boil it down, distill it down to a 2-digit mark, which is not always a totally good measure, but in this case, it's showing 10 to 12% increase in student performance. So 50 goes to a 62, or an 80 goes to a 92, as an example. Interesting enough, the teachers are adopting this in their own comfort level. Some are using it once every 5 classes. There's one particular teacher who's adopted it as the way they teach. And every one of their classes are structured. A lot of work up front, but once it starts, it runs itself. And that particular class is actually showing the best results, the ones that's exclusively doing the learning blocks method. So student engagement, that's just one example of where we need to be. In other good news, Roots of Empathy, this is a wonderful program. I was here one time when they hosted in this exact spot. They lay out a big carpet, and you imagine 25 babies crawling around the floor with politicians and directors down on their hands and knees. It's a pretty sight, but it's a wonderful program, and we certainly compliment them. It's just one example of how we're building social emotional learning. It's where a baby comes into a classroom, say junior high kids, and they get to develop empathy. And program founder Mary Gordon is actually from this province and recently received national recognition from the Governor General. Again, National Skills Canada competition, well attended by the province, great ambassadors. We had some numerous medals beyond the proportion of our population coming back with success there. And finally, part of the Red Cross Respect Education Program, we've had a number of instructors trained now in the healthy youth relationships, and they teach youths in grades 7 to 12. Mr. Chair, subject to questions, that is Director's report.
Thank you, Tony, and before I turn it over for questions, a lot of the players around this table have been around for a long time, and the size of our district, in terms of over 60,000 students, the 260-odd schools that we have out there, the over 10,000 employees, it never ceases to amaze me how all the issues that we have on a day-to-day basis, how all these moving parts still stay together, and the fact is that we are able to be dynamic and have winning types of activities going on in our schools. Not that we each know all the details that are going on a day-to-day basis, but the fact that that creativity and that work and that commitment to the students in our district is still there right through the system is quite amazing. And it comes to me through the development of leadership and making sure the leadership is holding the whole system in the right direction and pointing them in that direction. So Tony and your team, obviously, thank you for the work that you do, because it is what keeps us on the straight and narrow in a lot of ways. Any questions about the director's report or any clarifications? Okay, thank you, Tony.
Chair.
Next item of business is obviously the adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn? So moved by Pamela. Corey wasn't fast enough this time, so That's all we need. We don't need a vote on that. So thank you very much. Thank you for the people that have attended to take part, and thank you for the people that are plugging in around the province. Thank you very much.